questions from the audience. I'm sure you guys have questions. Let's, I guess, first start out with the film is so incredibly visual, from the cinematography and production design, even to performance. I mean, Kika's is so much of it is there's so little dialogue, I wondered, and I know you're a music video director too. I wonder, did this film kind of inspiration come from an image to you, or did it come more from an idea?
It was honestly all the... There we go. Okay. It was honestly about a mood and an atmosphere, and it all started with how I wanted to make you guys feel. And so, yeah, hopefully it worked. But that's what it started from. It started from a mood. My favorite movies are more about mood than they are about story, and this was so much about the atmosphere in the world, and we just wanted to highlight that in all the ways we could.
I'm sure some people, I mean, I feel like everyone here is was disturbed to differing degrees. Some people certainly more so than others, and not making light of that. But so I would be interested if you just wanted to explain to people why such a dark, disturbing world is something that was interesting for you to create and explore, and is that something that kind of where you feel like your films will kind of all live in?
Well, I gotta say first and foremost, I'm not as dark as my movie is. And I think that ultimately, as a fan of, this isn't in any way an autobiography of me, it's not, it comes from my love of movies, and I recognize the inherent drama in these darker stories. And with this, I kind of wanted to take the sort of story that would traditionally be told in a much louder, more aggressive way, and I wanted to have all that emotion and whatever was disturbing kind of play inside the audience's head more so than the screen. And to be able to play with that and put the audience inside of the mind of someone who they never thought they would sympathize with, and hopefully, at least for fleeting moments, you felt for her. And I think that that's fascinating, that even with a really dark character, you can get those brief moments.
Cool. Let's open up to the audience.
The challenging aspect of making this film, how many shoot days did you have?
Time. That was literally, these guys can all speak to it. We had 18 days to shoot. It was madness. To my crew's credit, we had a lot of pre-production, and we really went into it with a plan. But we banged it out in 18 crazy days, and then came back. We wrapped shooting in the first week of October, so this is, we finished last week. But yeah, time was definitely the biggest constraint, for sure.
What was the period of year was that focused on?
I wanted to be a little ambiguous for the most part, because her parents and the world that she's raised in is kind of separated from time, and she grows up not really having an awareness of what is going on in the world around her, except for the brief times that she leaves. But both her parents and her are kind of so isolated that, it could take place from anywhere from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s, and it's not as much about time, but the fact that you recognize that 20 years pass and it still doesn't feel all that different.
Yeah.
I guess kind of what I was talking about before about there are really dark characters in movies and in real life, and I think that sometimes what's even more dark and more fascinating than the moments of them doing violent things or terrible things is those quiet moments between all those when they just have to live with themselves. And I kind of just wanted to explore another side to characters that I feel like, this could have been made as a slasher movie, and Kika could have been a serial killer, but I wanted to make it a more thoughtful, exploration of a dark character.
Kika, just along those lines, what was the kind of exploration like for you going to this? Were you, did it take you convincing to be on the project? And
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
if you first just want to talk about the kind of exploration you had going and preparing for this character. It's clearly a very unique one, and did it take much convincing for you to take this role on?
No, not at all. The minute that Nick told me about the project, I was in. I love the script. I love the whole thing. I love playing dark characters. So yeah, I didn't take me anything.
And any sort of kind of specific things you maybe did to kind of prepare for the role, or was there anything like that?
Well, interesting thing is that the minute that they told me about the project, I'm not like the character at all, but I was kind of going through something, like I was living something like isolated and just something personal, so I couldn't relate totally to what that character was going through. And as an actor, sometimes you use things that are your personal, and sometimes you just imagine things. I don't know, maybe I just like do both, but yeah, I kind of like, when I received the script, I could totally relate to what that girl was going through.
No,
Even though I'm not gonna cut eyes,
A little bit about your thought on why you did it black and white instead of color. Was it to give it that vintage look, or a time?
Yeah, not even as much about the look. Something that Zach and I talked a lot about was we didn't want it to look like a movie that was made in the 60s. You know, we talked about, we shot digital. And when we were talking about doing it in black and white, rather, the decision came more from the movies that we were talking about and inspired by, in the way that they moved the camera and how they framed shots, and they just happened to be in black and white. Like, I love Psycho and Roman Polanski's Repulsion. And so part of it wasn't necessarily that the black and white of those movies drove the decision, but I thought that it was interesting that that used to be a choice you could make for your movie, and making that choice, I felt, would hopefully bring up some of that nostalgia to those older thrillers that made that choice.
Yeah, it was a great choice by you.
Thank you. And Zach, like,
Yeah, incredible job.
The truck drivers finding a woman on the highway.
Well, I'll come to her first. Just someone else. Yeah.
You decided to do this in Portuguese. How did you go about casting your actors, and where did you find them?
Well, Kika came before the script, and Kika, her native language is Portuguese. A lot of the movies that inspired this were in foreign languages, and I wanted that to be an element, to have multiple languages in it, and I thought that also story-wise, it further isolates her in this world where she doesn't speak the same way that the other people that she interacts with do. And I had worked with Kika before, and when I started coming up with this character, I was like, this is perfect for you. Her Portuguese was beautiful, and I thought it just, you know, would add a really interesting element to the character. And then we went from there, and she helped out Olivia and Diana with the Portuguese, and they are not native speakers. And yeah, but I thought that it added an interesting element to it all.
We have time for a couple more. Any other questions? I have a question for Olivia. You were talking about that you got to see some of the movie. Do you want to talk about your experience of what you saw earlier?
Well, I watched 2 minutes of it. And the rest, 18 minutes, were covering my eyes. So, well, I like seeing myself. And, I think that, it didn't seem as scary to me as it did to my sister, because I actually shot it with her, with everybody, so, I hope that it wasn't too scary to everybody else. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
We have time for any more questions, or we can be done. Let's give a round of applause to the team behind us.